asset is 1 million and they have incurred 5,000. Okay. The directly attributable costs. Okay. Then the future value consists of the guaranteed and unguaranteed portion of the residual value. Okay. So here in the question, they gave us the residual value. Okay. So the theory is that the residual value will be equal to the estimated market value of the asset at the end of the lease term. This will enable the lessor to sell the asset for that amount, right? The residual value will be an estimate, and the lessor will not be certain what the market value of the asset will be at the end of the lease term. However, at the commencement date of the lease, the lessee and the lessor could have a contractual agreement where they agree on a residual value guarantee amount of the underlying asset at the end of the lease term. Okay. The residual value amounts can be fixed, or they can be variable, right? The residual value will be variable if, for example, the estimated market value of the asset is lower than the agreed residual value guarantee, then the lessee will have to pay the difference to the lessor. This amount is the expected amount payable by the lessee under the residual value. So within the residual value, there's an amount that is guaranteed by the lessee. Okay. So hence why, right? The standard defines the unguaranteed residual value as the portion of the residual value of which the lessor is not assured of, So in this case, the residual value of the asset is then 400,000. Okay. Right. Then the lease period is 4 years. Okay. Then the payment is, I think at the top there, it was 246,367. All right. 246. 2463. Sorry, 246. Yeah, 367. Okay. Right. And then the interest is what we'll have to work out, which is rate. Okay, then it wants the period, which is 4. I just got it in Ransdale, correct just now. Okay, then the payment, then the present value, then the future value, beginning of the period. Okay, this should be in percent, right? Okay, so it's 12%. Okay, but in the solution, they got it to 1 decimal place, which is 1%. Okay, then this over here can just be doesn't matter. But anyway, this is just a number. This is like 4. Okay, representing the number of years for which the lease is active for. Okay, all right. So then we'll get to now the present value of the minimum lease payments, which is the liability, which forms part of the right of use asset. Okay, right. So in that instance, okay, see the right of use assets shall consist of the amount of the initial measurement of the liability, lease payments made at or before the commencement date, less any incentives received. All right. Incentives or payment made by a lessor to the lessee associated with the lease, or reimbursements, initial direct costs incurred by the lessee, so all of those costs, that are necessary to like conclude the lease generally will form part of the right of use asset. Okay, so in this case we just have the one expense of 3,000. Okay, so we'll put that in there as well. Okay, so very important that the future value here, okay, is only the guaranteed portion, so this is what um the what compeller said they're going to guarantee. So compeller said compeller um on 1 January 2018 expects that it will have to make a payment of 150,000 under the residual value guaranteed. Okay, so that's like the obligation, so that's how much they are willing to pay for this. Okay, so it's 150,000 that they'll pay. Okay, period is also 4 years. Okay, the PMT is the same as that, right? Then we work out the present value. Okay, which will be formula PV. Okay, rate is that percent over there, the implicit rate that we worked out. Then the period of the lease. Okay, then the payment. All right, then the future value. Okay, and then these payments are made at the end of the period, and then boom, we've got our liability. Okay, lease liability. All right, so you know we would need to now work out the right of use asset, which obviously includes the directly attributable costs that we discussed earlier. Okay, so that would be that 845,000 plus 300,000. Okay, then remember that right of use asset is depreciated over the lower of the lease period and the useful life of the assets. Okay, so the lease period is 4 years. That's what we have over there. Okay, then the carrying amount will obviously be the cost less the depreciation for the period, leaves us with 636,000. Okay, and that's then the amount we have there as the right of use asset. Okay, now we're left with PPE. All right, so over here we've already generated quite a lot of marks. Some of the things are straightforward. You see, yes, some things will be easier for other people. I mean, especially when it comes to things that like very well. I think the main idea is to like start generating marks as quick as possible. you know there's always like these curveballs in accounting exams, that people tend to get stuck there. People tend to get obsessed with those. So yeah, very important, okay, to not fall into that trap, and then put the other marks at risk. Okay, right. So we know that this land was acquired in 2015, as the question said, at a cost of 1.3 million. Okay, then we know it was valued for the first time, and it's the valuation date value is 1.5 million. Okay, therefore the revaluation of this land will be 200,000. Okay, so we are at the PPE note now. Okay, and we've done the land portion, you know, because it was easier. Okay. Um, then we saw that the the building part, there's a building that they had. Then there's also another building that was constructed. So what I normally do in that case, when I see that there's a company that was, when there was a machine or some equipment that were withdrawn, I normally start with that equipment, so that I can get the portion that must be capitalized to the asset. So we know from IS2 that the cost of the inventory, the cost of the asset is made up of the labor and the material, right? And direct production overheads. So overheads will obviously, include, depreciation of some of the equipment that was used within the production of that asset. Okay. So in our case here, it was for a period of 5 months, so we need to um, get the depreciation of that equipment. All right. And then they say that this equipment um, depreciates at 20% per annum according to the reducing balance method. Okay. So starting here, they give us the machinery carrying amount at 540,000. Okay. Then they say the accumulated depreciation is 120,000. Okay. So come back to our note. All right. They said the carrying amount that they gave us is 540,000. Okay. Then we need to, and then they say accumulated depreciation at the beginning of the period is 120,000. This means that um, the cost, right? Because cost less accumulated depreciation is the carrying amount. So to work backwards to get to the carrying amount, we need to say accumulated depreciation plus the accumulated depreciation plus the carrying amount will give us the cost at 660,000. Okay. Let's just move this here. Okay. All right. Then the depreciation of this, okay, since it's the reducing balance method, okay, is multiplied by 20%. Okay. But since now we want to split the depreciation with the depreciation capitalized, okay, then we need to apportion this for the amount of, or for the period where it was not being used to construct this asset. And that is a period of 7 months, right? So 7 out of 12 months, this asset was not being used to construct the building. Okay, so that gives us 63,000, all right? Then for the period that it was, we then take the carrying amount multiplied by the 20%, then multiply that by 5 out of 12. And that's how much was capitalized. Okay, all right. So let's just put that there, get the signs right so we get the correct total. Then make this that plus that. Okay. And then this was the depreciation for the year, which is also need to add the accumulated depreciation. Right. That gives us 432,000. Okay. Just copy this formula across. Okay. Right. Now we're done there. Okay. So then we can go on to the factory and the buildings, you know. But for me, the motor vehicles is a lot easier. Okay. So I can go there as well. Okay. So the motor vehicles, they say this is the cost, 720,000, and then motor vehicles cumulated depreciation is 336. Okay. Motor vehicles cost 720,000. Okay. Then we've got cumulated depreciation, which was 336. Okay. Let's change that sign there quickly. Right. So carrying amount at the beginning of the period was 384,000 Rand. Okay. So then there was an asset that was sold, right? There was a vehicle that was sold with the original cost price of 240,000, and on which 144,000 depreciation was already written off as at 1 January 2018. Okay. So they have not accounted for the depreciation of this asset that was sold. Okay. So we know that we need to get to the carrying amount of the asset being sold, right? So again, it's like over here, okay, the carrying amount of the asset being sold, right, is what we need to work out here in the note, okay? So how do we work that out, all right? We know that the cost of this asset, okay, was cost of this asset was 240,000, okay? Then accumulated depreciation was 144,000. Okay. So then motor vehicles are depreciated at 20% per annum according to the reducing balance method. Okay. So now we add, just come here so that you just see the numbers. Okay. So that is the 240,000, which is the cost. Okay. This is the 144,000, which is accumulated depreciation as at 1 January 2018, beginning of the year, right? We know that it gets depreciated on the straight line method. So when an asset gets depreciated on the straight line method, you can simply get the depreciation by multiplying it with a cost, which is different from the example we did now on the machinery. Remember, the machinery, that 20% gets applied to the carrying amount of the asset at the beginning of the period. When it's straight line, it's 20% on the cost. Okay, just remember that. All right. So then we have 240,000. Okay. Then we also multiply that with the period for which it was in use for, right? So in this case, since we sold on the 1st of August, right, means that this asset was in use for, again, 7 out of 12 of the period. Okay, so that is the depreciation that we worked out. So cost minus accumulated depreciation minus depreciation until the asset was sold gives us then the carrying amount of the asset. Okay, right. And that must be a negative. This is going out. Okay, right. So then we would then need to get, so now since we know that the cost of the asset that was taken out, right, was 240,000, okay? So to work out the depreciation of the motor vehicles, okay, um, would then be the remaining assets, okay, plus this asset here that was disposed of just for that portion, just for that period, okay. So to get the cost of those assets, right, we will first have to say, let's put it negatively and say that 720,000, okay, minus 244,000, yeah, 40 or 44, 240, sorry, 240,000, which is the cost of the asset that was disposed, okay, then multiply that by 20%, okay. So that's the depreciation of the remaining assets for the current year, okay. And then to obviously remember that cost of the asset, we'll just do it again here so that we just emphasize it, right? We will then add, okay? So we're adding the depreciation of this asset here that we excluded, okay? So that'll be 240,000 multiplied by 20% multiplied by 7 out of 12, okay? Right, so it's depreciation for the whole year of the remaining assets, and then the assets that were disposed of, we apportion, right? So let's say another asset was purchased in the current year, right? On the same date, and it cost like 100,000, for example. We would add the depreciation or the cost of that, the depreciation of the new asset. So that would say we'd take that cost multiplied by 20% and then multiplied by 5/12, because that's how long the new asset will be depreciated for. And then that would give us the depreciation for the current year. Okay. But since there was no asset, we'll just need to take out the depreciation for the asset that was disposed of. Okay. So that gives us 124,000. Right. Then to come close it off here, okay, we know that for the cost of the asset, we say the 720,000 minus the 240,000 gives us the cost, right? Then accumulated depreciation wise, okay, remember we have to take out the depreciation of the accumulated depreciation of the asset that was sold. So we only have the depreciation of the remaining assets. Okay. So maybe at a starting point, say at 336, right, which is the opening accumulated depreciation. All right, and then just want to copy this formula here. for the remaining assets so that we see the depreciation of the remaining assets. That gets us to 242,000 Rand. Okay, let's just get my signs right there. 432,000 Rand. Okay, then I need to take out the 144,000, which was the depreciation, opening depreciation of the asset we've sold. Okay, and that leaves us with our motor vehicles. All right. Okay, so then we need to come through now and deal with the buildings. Okay, so for the buildings, all right. Sorry, there. For the buildings, okay, all they say is that the cost of this building is 4.8 million. Okay, so we need to work out the accumulated depreciation on that. Okay, they say buildings depreciate at 2% per annum. So the cost of the building, we've got that at 4.2 million. Sorry, 4.8 million. Okay, now put in the formula there, right? So I mean, with the depreciation for the 2015 year when it was purchased, okay, depreciated for 8 months. They bought it, they completed it, or started to use it, like they say here in the question, from 1 May 2015. Okay, so May to December 2015, the depreciation there was 64,000. Okay, then the depreciation for 2016 obviously took the cost, multiplied it by the 2% for the whole year, and then the depreciation for 2017 is 96,000 as well, right? And then also for the current year, this building was not disposed of or anything like that, so that comes up to 96,000 Rand. Okay, so I've just pulled through the formulas over here as well. So the cost, which we got from above there, then the accumulated depreciation, which is what we got at the beginning of the period, what we worked out at the bottom, then the depreciation for the current year is what we have over here. Okay, so then the additions that we have, new building, we said that the material is labor and material 1.2 million. Okay, plus the capitalized portion, which is 45,000, right? So the additions at cost, then the capitalization, 45,000, sorry. Okay. Okay, so then that to work out now this depreciation, we need to know when this was brought into use, and it was brought into use after 5 months, so it's only for a period of 7 months. Okay, so for that we then say this plus this, right, times 2% times 7 out of 12. Okay, and then we also added that to the depreciation of the old building, and that gives us a depreciation of 110,000 Rand. All right. Okay, guys. So that's essentially the idea we've got over here. Let me maybe just fix the signs for consistency. Although this depreciation is capitalized, remember it's added to the cost of the building that was constructed. Okay. So over here, my cost has stayed the same. Just want to add the accumulated depreciation. So it's all consistent. Yeah. Right, guys. Let's just fix this as well to get the cost there and get the signs consistent there for you guys. All right, 6045. Okay. Then accumulated depreciation. Let's just change that sign over there. Since that was for illustrative purposes. Okay, then we have this. Put that sign over there. Right. Okay, then let's have this come plus that. Right. Right, guys. Just 1 second. Yeah. Right, guys. So that's your note. There you have it, right? Then when you combine all the carrying amounts, comes up to 7.8 million. Okay, and that's what you have the disclosed as PPE. Okay, right, guys. So yeah, that's how you approach a question like this. All right. Um, most important thing is exam technique. Okay, right, and generating marks. So when you're done with something, let it pull through across. So that we see the calculations. The calculations can be laid out differently, like you see over here, my buildings. So just have it like nicely referenced out. That this building here, working that out. Over here, and then the new building as well. I'm working it out over here. You know, nicely referenced and everything, so that the market can know what it is that you're doing. Okay. So yeah, just post any questions that you have in the discussion forum relating to Compeller Limited. And yeah, I will get back to you guys as soon as I can. Right. Thank you.